In the last episode, we looked at how psychologists go about measuring the mind by turning constructs such as happiness or confidence into numbers that we can analyse. But not all research in psychology revolves around numbers. Some really interesting insights into the human mind can come from systematically examining what people say. But if psychology is really a science, then how can conversations, stories and personal accounts constitute data? And what makes the approaches used to analyse them sufficiently rigorous that they might be considered scientific? When you think of psychological research, you might imagine numbers and graphs and probability values, but not all questions in psychology can be best answered using statistics. That's where qualitative research comes in, which broadly speaking involves examining human experience using words as opposed to numbers. In practical terms, we're talking about things like interviews, focus groups, even looking at people's diary entries. This allows us to interrogate people's experiences and ask questions like, what does grief feel like? Or why do people stay in jobs they hate? Qualitative research tends to work from an interpretivist or constructivist perspective, which involves the idea that in order to understand behaviour, we need to grasp the meanings that people attach to their experiences. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, well, that's all well and good, but it doesn't sound very scientific. But done properly, qualitative research can be rigorous. The process begins by defining a clear research question, then collecting data systematically and analysing that data according to established frameworks. So let's have a look at some of the methods used in qualitative research and the standards by which such research is judged. Interviews are one of the most commonly used methods in qualitative research. They can take different forms, structured, semi-structured or unstructured, depending on how tightly the questions are set out in advance. In psychology, semi-structured interviews are particularly common. They use a series of open-ended questions to promote reflection and allow the researcher to adapt follow-up questions as new ideas emerge. This flexibility helps researchers access detailed personal information while still keeping the conversation sufficiently focused on the research question. Focus groups bring people together to discuss a topic collectively. Instead of giving individual isolated accounts, participants respond to, challenge and build on each other's ideas. This makes focus groups particularly useful for studying socially shared meanings, how opinions are formed, reinforced and negotiated in real time. They're often used when the researcher is interested in group norms, consensus, disagreement, or the language people use when talking about an issue collectively. Case studies provide a detailed, contextualized understanding of a single case, which could be one person, a family, a small group, or even an organization. They're especially useful when the subject matter is very complex, unusual, or deeply embedded in a particular context. Case studies draw upon multiple sources of evidence, interviews, observation, documents, to build up a rich picture of the case in question. Because they use different types of data, they can reveal processes and patterns that would be difficult to detect using a single method. Diary methods ask people to record their experiences in their own time, often close to when events occur. This reduces the reliance on retrospective memory and captures thoughts and feelings as they unfold. Diaries are especially useful for topics that are private, emotionally sensitive, or variable over time. Things that people might not feel comfortable saying out loud or might just forget to mention after the fact. They can also reduce interviewer influence, giving participants more control over how their experiences are expressed. Gathering quality data is an essential part of qualitative research, but researchers then have to make sense of that data. There are several main approaches to analysing qualitative data, the choice of which is determined by the research question and the aims of the research. Thematic analysis is one of the most commonly used approaches in qualitative research. It identifies patterns across a dataset, the themes that capture important ideas about a topic. It's flexible, accessible and suitable when you want to summarise key ideas across participants. Because it isn't tied to a strict theoretical framework, it can be adapted to many kinds of research questions. Interpretive phenomenological analysis, or IPA, takes a more focused, in-depth approach. It explores how individuals make sense of significant life experiences, such as illness, trauma, or major transitions. The emphasis is on rich, detailed accounts of personal meaning. The researcher plays an active interpretive role, trying to understand both what the participant says and the sense-making behind it. Discourse analysis shifts the focus from inner experience to language itself. It examines how people use words to construct identities, negotiate blame, express power, or shape social realities. It asks, how is this person creating meaning through language? It's especially useful for studying social issues, media, politics, and everyday conversations. Let's try and make things more concrete by giving you a hypothetical example of research where the qualitative approach is particularly well suited to addressing the research question. Let's say a psychologist is interested in answering the question, what makes office workers decide to leave their jobs? The researcher conducts a semi-structured interview with participants, asking them questions about how they felt about their role and the circumstances leading up to their decision to leave the job. Participants probably wouldn't respond to such questions with answers like, well, my satisfaction scores declined considerably over the last few years. They'd probably say things like, I felt invisible, or my boss only noticed when I made mistakes. By analysing these interviews, researchers can uncover themes such as a lack of recognition, unclear expectations, or feeling micromanaged, all of which could be drivers of disengagement with a company but might be missed with more quantitatively orientated surveys. As with quantitative research, qualitative research is judged against certain standards. Credibility is all about ensuring that findings accurately reflect participants' real experiences and perspectives. To achieve this, researchers use strategies such as involving other researchers in the analysis and checking interpretations with the participants to ensure they resonate with their experiences. Transferability is all about helping readers judge whether the findings of a study might apply to other contexts. Researchers do this by providing what's called thick detail, or rich information about the people, the settings, and the situations being studied, so that others can judge the applicability of the research to their own context. Dependability focuses on the stability and transparency of the research process. One way researchers achieve this is via the use of an audit trail, or careful documentation of how data was collected, codes were developed, and decisions changed over time, so that in principle another researcher could follow the same path. Confirmability concerns whether the findings of a study are grounded in the data rather than the experimenter's biases or preferences. This is achieved via reflexive notes, audit trails, and making clear links between the data, for example direct quotes, and the interpretations being made. A key concept in maintaining the quality of qualitative research that we've just alluded to is something called reflexivity. Reflexivity involves examining how a researcher's background, assumption, or position might influence the research, from the questions they ask to the interpretations that they offer. To achieve this, qualitative researchers often keep reflexive journals, discuss assumptions with their team, and also document how their thinking develops over the research project. So how do you choose between quantitative and qualitative research? Well, here's the key. You don't pick the method you prefer, you pick the method that's best suited to addressing your research question. If you want to measure people's behaviour in some fashion or test whether one thing causes another, that puts you in quantitative territory. If you're interested in exploring what something means to people or how they experience it, then a qualitative approach can often be the way to go. It's important to note that qualitative and quantitative research don't operate completely independently of each other. In fact, many research programs start with interviews or focus groups to identify key questions or issues that can then be explored at scale using surveys or experiments. Or vice versa. You start off with a quantitative approach such as a large-scale survey, and then follow it up with a qualitative approach such as semi-structured interviews so that you can understand selected results more deeply. That's called a mixed methods approach and involves qualitative and quantitative approaches working in harmony. In the next episode, we're going to have a look at how participants are recruited for psychological research. So if that's something that interests you, hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you then.